Welcome to the Forge Forward podcast. My name is Phil DeCruz, your host, and I'm alongside the ever witty, amazing Courtney Smith. And today we're going to dive into some game-changing industry insights and explore the innovations of shaping the future today. The podcast today we have Tal from Majestic. How you doing today, mate?
Hello. Good. The sun's shining. It's a beautiful day outside. What could I want more than to be online with both of you?
Love your background, mate. How did you get that built? Is that a tricky little offline tool or AI or something? How did you do that?
You know what? It's actually not. It's old school, using graphic tools, taking images and basically overlaying our logo onto them. So no, it's not real. It's certainly not what my office looks like, but it's a good office.
It looks lovely. So it's sort of office I'd like to work into. I might come over one day.
Well, we've got a whole series of them with different looks. So,
oh, really? So I can come across and see what 6 offices look like in one. That's gold.
Or 9, yes.
Or 9, I love it. Well, it's great to have you on board, mate. We're friends through another industry group, which we both care for and like. It's come up in a couple of conversations, and one of those conversations is about the concept of abundance and bringing people together to share their knowledge, to share their networks, to share their experiences in such a way that we can walk away from this little event called Forge with a signal, some knowledge, and some great conversations at the end of the day, and some learnings, right? So before we get into that bit, which we will get into later, can you tell us a little bit about Majestic, what you do, and what's the unique value you bring to market?
Sure. Okay. Well, so Majestic is a digital innovation advisory and consulting business. It's quite a mouthful, but in essence, that's what we do for our clients. We work with organizations predominantly in the SME space, although we do have a couple of very large enterprise clients, but the majority of our space that we operate in is sort of the SME mid-market across a number of different industries, manufacturing, sort of industrial machinery, construction engineering, healthcare, not-for-profit, and so on. So it's a fairly diverse set of clients. And in essence, we become, for those clients that don't have an internal technology department or only a very small internal technology capability, we become their IT department. And I mean that in every sense of the way. So this is not just about providing a managed service as an outsourced provider that people would be used to, but it encompasses putting in someone in a part-time capacity or as a fractional capacity into their business to sit alongside them in management meetings and what have you, and basically drive strategy, their technology strategy as aligned with their business objectives.
Wow, so that covers a fairly wide-ranging gamut. Is there anything that's very specifically where you're finding customers leaning to the most at the moment?
Look, I guess for us, the reason that we don't tend to pick up a client that hasn't had an IT provider previously, either internally or externally. That's not where we operate in. So the clients that come to work with Majestic because they've been through the ringer with a number of different service providers that are there to fulfill a function. So they get asked to do something, they go and deliver it. And they come to the realization that invariably they're not in the best position to determine when it is that they actually need something and what is the something that they actually need. So they need to start rolling it backwards from there and saying, well, we know we need something. We're not sure what the something is, but for a larger organization that has a CIO, for example, or a CTO internally, they would be sitting there around the table understanding what the business is doing and what the business needs and plugging in the initiatives and driving the roadmap accordingly. So that's where the difference is. So that's what we're leaning into.
And managed services can be a race to the bottom, but clearly, if you provide that wrap of value, that changes the dynamic exponentially. So, kudos to you, mate. Kudos.
Sure. Look, we make a pretty bold claim for our clients. In our relationship with our customers, we say to them that we will, at the very least, be cost neutral, but ideally revenue accretive.
Yeah, right.
So we measure what they spend with us against an ROI, and we play it back to them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very, very unique.
I like that.
So I'm going to lean in off the back of that just into why we're here. We've come together because we've agreed that Forge is a place to demonstrate our businesses, to be part of a partnership network that is abundant. Can you describe what you see Forge and how it should benefit industry as you see it, please? Tell.
Okay, so in essence, here's how I look at things. There isn't a single provider on the face of this earth that does everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, our collective clients, or indeed any kind of business out there, needs a mix of skills and capabilities from a variety of different vendors, service providers, solution providers, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, well, certainly for us, and when I had the conversation with you guys earlier on about jumping on board here, it became very evident to me that what you bring to bear through Forge, through this conference, is an enabler of bringing together a collection of different solutions that all address needs of a particular market segment. So putting it all on one roof, under one roof, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's not designed to be an absolute catch-all, but it's trying to give people an opportunity to step into a room and to see what sorts of things are emerging and happening across an ecosystem. And in this case, the industries are quite industrial and are typically laggards a little bit in technology. So, you know, this opportunity to bring Majestic and other providers in a partnership network is not very common that we've seen. Too often trade shows are the go-to, where you pay for a 3x3 or a 6x3, and you get transaction conversations. You don't get abundant conversations around how you can knowledge share, how you can add value. So I like that you've taken that essence out, and I appreciate that framing.
Look, I'll also add this. Quite often, people really across all of the industry segments that we operate in, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And bringing a bunch of people together into a room and sharing ideas and concepts, I would expect, I mean, certainly when I go to conferences on things that I don't know, you learn a lot. You take things away from it. You don't necessarily go and implement it all tomorrow, but at least in the back of your mind, you've got the notion that, hey, I've seen this before. I kind of get what this is all about. I might not have that as an initiative for the next 3 to 6 months, but in 12 months' time, when I'm ready for it, I've got it on my plan to go back and look into it. Yeah, it doesn't all have to happen tomorrow, right? So
100%. And that leans into the concept, and stealing a little bit from Maddie Murray, who we both know, that concept of in some events, the value of going by yourself, the sum of bringing other people may be greater than the sum of the parts, because you get to experience and converse and talk about things that are not on the typical agenda that people aren't typically seeing, and have an opportunity to explore that out in a conversation at an event, as opposed to just dialoguing it with your own head, in your own little Faraday cage. So we are pushing out with our partners, the Majestics and all the other partners we bring to bear for Forge, and there's a number. So it's going to be a pretty cool event to see what's coming. We're expressing that it would be great for them to talk to their customers and or partners and or suppliers, whatever way you want to look at it, and maybe a couple of people in the business, just to shape some thinking and shape some conversation. I like how Matty framed that for me with his uncommon thinking approach. All righty, Phil. We've talked fairly high level here. Can we get into the meat and gravy bit?
The meat and gravy.
That's the stuff that you eat. The veggies on the side, right?
Gravy.
The meat and gravy.
Yeah. And then the hedgehog brownie afterwards.
You always got to close off with a brownie.
You got to close it off. I kind of want to understand, how does Majestic, how do they stay ahead of the industry trends, and what's the role of partnerships play in your success?
Right, so that's two questions in one. Let me see how I go with that.
It's a double.
So how do we stay ahead?
It's a test. Yeah. It's a psychological and intelligence test at the end, mate.
Right. So how do we stay ahead is very much interlinked with what partnerships mean to us and in our success. To put it straight out there, we are vendor agnostic. So we will never go to a customer or a client of ours and say, you must use this because that's the flavor of blue that we like, and so that's what we think that everyone should use, and so go and use that, because that doesn't necessarily play to our strengths. What we're about is, just as an internal IT department within any business would operate, you go to market, you establish what opportunities there are for solutions to address a particular need, particular requirement. You bring them to the table. You then have you grade them. So we build all kinds of scorecards, what have you, and then you help the client make a decision around what the best solution looks like for them, and that encompasses a whole array of different things that we go into when we play that kind of an exercise with a client around a particular solution for a problem, where we really need to stay impartial. We of course have lots of our own opinions, but it's important that we do stay impartial. If we didn't have partnerships, we wouldn't know what's out there. So we need to have an understanding of what's going on broadly in the market, but it's impossible to know about everything. There are often tens, dozens, hundreds of solutions to address a particular problem, and each one of those solutions has its own nuanced way of going about achieving a result, and some are going to fit better for a particular client than others. So having exposure to what's going on in the marketplace, and we do our own research, of course. We look at all sorts of magic quadrants. We analyze a whole lot of different solutions in different industry sectors. We go to different events for different industry sectors. Our job is to make sure that we're informed of what's going on out there, so that we can come up with all the cool ideas for our clients, right?
You've blended into exactly my thinking, which is innovation is an important part of any business. Doesn't matter where you are and what you are. As the technology provider, maybe you need to be ahead of the curve a little bit in order to stay ahead of the marketplace and serve your customers appropriately. Who's your innovation officer? Who's the person that finds the interesting stuff that's going to make a difference for your customers, both current and future?
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, because a significant part of what the value proposition to our clients is the advisory piece. We don't have one innovation officer. We have a number of consultants whose job is to work with the clients to whom they're attached as the primary and drive innovation within that particular customer. And really that manifests itself in a number of different ways. I'm actually very seldom nowadays the guy that comes up with the cool new ideas. And I think it would be an indictment on our business if I was still the one that had to come up with all those cool ideas, because there's only that many hours in a day. I do from time to time come up with something cool, but for the most part, it's definitely our consulting team whose responsibility is to do that.
Have you got a story, an example that you can give of something that you found to be innovative in the delivery of something for your client? And the funny thing is, Tal, and if I can take it sideways, innovation doesn't have to be technology. It can be the way you do something new or the way you put a new role in your business. There's lots of ways you can be innovative, right? So yeah, I'm just curious,
Sure.
what's something that you've got that comes to mind?
Yeah, well, look, we can spend all day here. I can tell you all kinds of success stories, and we've got a bunch of those as case studies. But one that's particularly cool because it does actually incorporate AI is a number of years ago we started working with a client in the civil space.
Right.
And this particular organization was looking to grow. They were reasonably small. They were in the sort of early stages of the business comparatively. And the owners of the business told us at the outset, at the beginning of the engagement, they said, we anticipate that in 5 years' time, we're going to sell this business. And just kind of flippantly, I said, right, so how much, what do you think, where do you need to exit, on what kind of valuation? And they told me, and I said, wow, I'm not seeing how the size of your business today gets to that kind of valuation. The multiples you're talking about is enormous. And one of the owners said, no, we're planning on growing. And I said, oh, fantastic! Like that's you're exactly the company that we want to work with. How are you planning on growing? And he said, well, we've been around in this space for decades. We know the game plan. We've started this business a few years ago, but we know where we're going. We know exactly how we're going to get there. So I said, okay, well, that's great that you know, but if we're going to work together, I need to kind of understand. And there wasn't really a cohesive message there. And so I said, okay, look, I'll tell you what, we're going to work together, and this is part of what we'll work towards. Now, remember, we're a technology company. Yeah, we're not management consultants. We do kind of sit on the border sometimes, but we're a technology company. So we started working with them, and the consultant engaged in the account was involved in some of the leadership meetings, and you sit there and you have discussions around bids and losses.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Tenders, fun.
Tenders, right? So they're in a space where they're working with council, municipalities, so blue chip clients, and they're getting the small contracts, and they're not getting the substantially huge ones. Or the ones that they're really wanting to get that will allow them to grow. And we're seeing this repeat itself over a period of time. And so we, in one of those conversations that the consultant was involved in, he said, all right, look, why don't I sit with your bid team and understand how you construct your bid?
Mm-hmm.
And fundamentally, what they were doing is going through the same motions that all those people that have come into that business have learned in other businesses that they worked in before. It was all the same.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in a couple of professors from INSEAD developed which is a European business school, developed a whole theory around what's called blue ocean strategy, and there's actually a book on that.
Yes.
And so they argued that the best way to win is to create your own blue ocean, or not a highly contested environment, but to create an environment where you're standing alone, and people can't really compare you against somebody else. They can't stick you into a grid and go, right, well, you're that expensive, you do this, you do that. They can't do that because you're doing something they can't compare to someone else.
And that's very common in civil, Tal, isn't it? Very common. Yeah.
It certainly is. Yeah. I mean, everyone, look, the talent comes from the same gene pool, right?
Yes.
So how do you create innovation in that space? Well, you go and start looking for things that people are doing out there in the world in other areas that they're not necessarily doing in that particular industry, say civil, for example. Yeah. These are the things that we look for. So in their case, I was fortunate enough a number of years earlier to have been involved in a project that took video and extrapolated data from it to understand in a car park whether a vehicle was being cased or someone's lost their car keys. Yeah, through AI. Yeah. Anyway, so we approached that same company that we did that earlier project with, and we took their product and another solution out of the UK that takes data around the materials being used in a built environment.
Oh, yeah.
And we then got them to ask council on the next contract that they were bidding for to mount a pole on the site. And they were allowed to do that so long as they would make good at the end of it. And we basically sucked a video feed for 30 days.
Right.
And we took that information from that video feed and overlaid it on top of the information that came out, or fed it into the other system. And together that created for us a plan for the maintenance costs associated with maintaining the built environment over its 10-year anticipated lifespan. With scheduling, costing, there's a whole lot of elements that go into it. I'm giving you an abridged version. Cut a long story short, they won a contract that was 10 times larger than any other contract they've ever won before.
Wow. And what you've provided there is two absolute snippets. One is don't always follow the sheep. Don't always follow the sheep. Yeah. Create your own way forward and separate yourself. A friend, Ramsey, talks about category design, which is part of that thinking as well. Yep. And then of course it is ensure no matter what that you put a solution in that works, that adds value. And that is accretive, right? Which is exactly what you've suggested there. That's an awesome story. Probably one of the best stories we've had on the podcast so far because it's so viscerally connected to the industries in which we operate. And Forge is inviting to attend the event.
Now, incidentally, just to wrap this up very quickly, so as a result of that particular project win, it then went like wildfire because once people hear you're doing something new and innovative, everybody wants in, right?
Yes.
So that business grew. That business grew tenfold, more than tenfold, over a 4.5-year period, and the owners exited with what they wanted.
Wow.
It's an awesome success story.
Did they cut you in on the win?
Wow.
Do you know what? One of the owners actually said, you should have taken shares.
Yeah, no, you should have taken shares. Oh, no.
We should have, but we took our fees. I was very happy with that.
Might have been a conflict of interest.
Maybe.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Lucky them. Wow, that's good shit. Yeah. When we talk about industry challenges and strategies, which you've just kindly just exampled one, but what are some current challenges you see that are coming over the horizon? And it's a double whammy question again, but like how do you seek to navigate those challenges?
Challenges. Every time someone smart comes up with a piece of technology to help solve a problem, someone equally as smart or maybe arguably smarter comes up with a way to use it in a way that it wasn't never intended to be used and to take advantage of a particular situation in a nefarious way. That's the unfortunate world that we live in. Once upon a time, when people wanted to steal things, they broke your window or your door, and they came in and took your TV. Nowadays, most of the really gainful crime happens digitally, and no one ever needs to come through your front door. They're probably not even in the same country, and that fundamental problem underpins everything that we do. The thinking about solutions to address that problem underpins everything that we do. It's not enough to just come up with a solution. You need to be very cognizant of what are the risks. that are associated with implementing that solution, and to think forward and go, right, well, if I'm going to do this, what are the potential implications of it? And it's very hard to look into the future and imagine something that hasn't happened yet, right?
Yeah.
That's
Look,
that's
that's amazing snippet for me, because I tend to get excitable about the future, right? Which means that I get caught up in the hype a little bit, and I see all the values. As a person who looks forward a lot, I don't look in the rear vision mirror as much as I do looking forward, and therefore I'm putting myself at risk, and potentially the organisation and the extended partner networks and all sorts of impacts in this cyber linked world we operate in today. So security, that's going to be a conversation that's going to be well worth bringing forward, and we're going to lean into that. You're going to be taking a spot where you've taken a partnership role, but I've known you long enough that I know you're going to add some huge value up on the stage in a forum, and so we're going to have you speaking at Forge as well, which will be awesome. This conversation you've had today around strategic thinking, alignment to company objectives, blue ocean strategy, and then this final piece, this concept around do all of that, but make sure you're looking at what the rear vision mirror could look like. These are snippets of gold. These are what we would call signals that you need to think about, Tal. So thank you so much on that front. It does beg me to question, though, with all of this knowledge you're bringing to bear, how do you measure success? What does success look like for you, and what tools do you use to measure success?
Okay. There are a number of ways that success is measured, and the first thing that people always tell me, well, ROI, it's all about you invested X and you got Y, right? It's not always the case. So, for instance, when we're talking about commercial clients that make an investment, so every dollar, whether they're spending it on marketing or they're spending it on IT or they're spending it on whatever, they want to realize a return, and they look and measure what kind of return they're getting out of what they're doing. Yeah, that's a conventional way of looking at success.
Yep.
But success also needs to be measured in the context of people satisfaction, right? Success needs to be measured in the context of client satisfaction. Success needs to be measured in the context of say if you're a not-for-profit, on how you're engaging and what results you deliver for the cause that you're supporting. And we've got a few clients in that particular space, and for them, success is not about getting $5 for every $1 that they spend, but they actually want to measure success in terms of the people that they're helping. If they're a healthcare provider
the
role,
impact they're making, mate, how they're affecting impact in the society in which we operate. 100%.
Correct. So we look at it really in three different ways, and when we set out to start on or to embark on any kind of project or any kind of innovation for a client, the first thing that we do is we sit down with them and we say, right, what are the measures of success that we're going to use for this particular project? Is it financial? Is it, you want people to feel good? And then we measure it. Yeah. Now, I don't like CSATs. I think more often than not.
Customer satisfaction is, for those that don't know what CSATs are, guys. Sorry. You've gone all techo on me, Tal.
No, my apologies. That's not even an IT thing, right? That's a marketing.
No, I know, but yeah, it's a marketing thing.
But yes, I don't believe in measuring point in time. So if I look at us, for example, providing services, certainly if we're talking about a managed service here, either in an IT or IT security related context, clients contact us when they have a problem. That's not the right time to ask them if they're happy.
It's not a good time,
right? The right time to ask them if they're happy is independently of anything to do with that particular event, yeah. And it needs to be very focused around the outcomes that you want to engender in the mind and heart of the customer. The same thing goes for people. So a lot of the stuff that we do when firstly when we engage with a new client, even before we engage with them, but then over the course of the journey or the relationship, is we periodically have a look at what are we doing from an IT perspective, what initiatives do we do from an IT perspective to align themselves with attraction and retention strategies for talent within the business.
Yeah.
And the reason that that's really important is because we know that if they have good automation in place, in other words, they've got good operational efficiencies, and their staff are happy because those operational efficiencies are meaning that the staff are able to do more impactful work and less of the rubbish that IT should be able to do for them. Yeah. Invariably, what that means is that they're going to attract and retain a better caliber of client.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a chain reaction there. So to measure success, first of all, it's important to understand what it is that you're measuring. Secondly, it's important to understand when to measure it, and not to measure it when most organizations do, which is at the point of where the customer or your client has interacted with you on something that could have an adverse reaction or have them in a mindset that's not necessarily conducive to getting a truthful, unbiased, almost response.
Look, I think that's a wonderful way to close out. You've opened up two conversations that I would like to close out on the back of that. Number one is that people are the soul of your operations, and I think that will stay for a long time. You need to make them happy. You need to think about what makes their lives easier, and technology can be an abundant way to do that, or a quality way to do that. The second is that we actually have a partner which I'm closely connected to, which we've talked about in the past, Tal, Firefly, which is all about understanding and caring about our communities, because I think that hyperlocal communities is what we're all going to lean back to when technology gets a bit crazy. And we need to lean into our communities. And Firefly is someone that Forge is sponsoring into this event as a stand-up that's supporting all the not-for-profits across Australia, not just individual not-for-profits. So I love you supporting not-for-profits. I love you looking at how you can give them success. It's not just about putting a technology solution in. It's about a strategic outcome for their business and their customers. And on that note, we're so lucky to have had you today, Tal. I've learned a lot about your business, which shows me why Forge is going to be so bloody good. Because if we have any sorts of conversations like this with the partner network we know, we're all going to want to work together for a long time. So thanks for coming along today. Thanks for attending Forge, and much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tal. This is going to be a one-of-a-kind event, and your addition is aligned with our goals. So thank you very much again.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.